En un artículo
In an article disseminated by U.S. magazine Foreign Policy called Who Fears Saudi Nuclear Weapons? They alert that Saudi Arabia could be planning purchasing nuclear reactors, which is called an imprudent behavior that leads to mistrust their actions. There's a report from the House of Representatives of the United States whereby President Donald Trump pretends to transfer to Riyadh through several of his companies highly sensitive nuclear technology. Through CBS News, the higher Prince Mohammed bin Salman had warned Saudi Arabia does not aspire to the atomic bomb, but undoubtedly, if Iran develops it, we would do it immediately. This gives us important keys. In July 2018, Newsweek said that Netanyahu asked Trump to keep him updated of the negotiations, especially to set limits. After the U.S. withdrawal from INF, followed by Russia in March, is the arms race starting again in the Middle East? Israel has good relations with Saudi Arabia and, of course, considers Iran its enemy. Still, will this ally allow Iran to dispute its monopoly in the region? Russia, North Korea, China, is there guarantees that nuclear technology with civil purposes do not become nuclear weapons? Saudi Arabia, the next nuclear power. This is our critical move today. We will look at actors, news, shared or different interests in this critical move. Let's look at data regarding what we informed in the editorial. Last Wednesday, March 27, Reuters talked about a document of the U.S. Nuclear Weapons Administration said that Rick Perry passed the authorization that enable certain U.S. companies to sell nuclear technology and assistance to the Saudi kingdom. The authorities have asked the agency, according to the document in Reuters, that it not publish the authorizations for this purpose. It adds that these movements are called concerned among several U.S. dictators and have shown a strange atmosphere. After the murder in 2018 of Jamal Khashoggi in Istanbul, columnist of the Washington Post and critique of the Arab monarchy. It's important to know this, and we will graph where almost 15,000 nuclear weapons that are threatening the world ready to be used, or what is defined against what is defined the enemy. According to 2018 data of the International Institute of Peace study in Stockholm, the world has around 400,465 nuclear weapons. This figure means 470 less than in 2017. They are all distributed in 9 countries, 1 in North America, Eurasia, 2 in Europe, 5 in Asia. The United States was the first to develop them, the only one that used it in a war upon Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 that ended the Second World War. It has 6,800 nuclear warheads. Russia was the second country to develop them when it was the USSR. And according to this investigation of CIPRI, it has the largest arsenal with 7,000 nuclear warheads. The UK has a fleet of 4 submarines equipped with nuclear weapons in Scotland. Each one has 16 Trident missiles. The UK nuclear systems are in maintenance. In total, they have 215 nuclear warheads. In France, most of their nuclear warheads are in submarines which are equipped with M45 and M45-1 and missiles. They can also be launch nuclear bombs and aircraft. China sums 270 nuclear warheads that can be launched by air, land, and sea. India has between 130 and 140, Pakistan between 140 and 150. Israel does not deny or confirm the existence of their nuclear arsenal. The only thing that is known is that it has 80 warheads. North Korea has around 10 to 20 nuclear warheads, and it's not clear if he has the capacity of launching them, although U.S. intelligence assures that if it doesn't reduce its warheads in exchange to denuclearize, Donald Trump offers to lift the sanctions against this country. The first two countries, United States and Russia, concentrate 92% of the world nuclear force. UN warns more than half of the world population lives in countries with these weapons or in nuclear alliances. United Nations is warning that more than half of the world population lives in a world with these weapons or members of dangerous nuclear organizations. Let's go to this photography by Joaquín Domínguez called Nuclear Power, published in Geopolitical, Orden Mundial, July 29, 2018. The source is Infobae. And here we find data that enable us to complement the map we just transmitted. Nuclear weapons per country and nuclear weapons by availability by 2017. 4,000 ready to use, 1,800 for alert use, and 5,600 withdrawn and being dismantled according to this information. We see here where the nuclear arsenal of the world is located. In the north of our continent, United States, the second country with the largest amount, 6,800 warheads, and the rest is between Asia and Europe. We can see in the case of Russia, it has the highest number, and what is in blue are their own nuclear warheads. Then the Pelindaba Treaty and the Tlatelolco Treaty make South America, Central America, and Africa be the main zones free from nuclear weapons. Pelindaba for the case of our America, excluding the United States, and Pelindaba in the case of Africa, and Tlatelolco in the case of Central America. I will go now from Orden Mundial to Hispan TV. Iranian means that on March 2018, Saudi Arabia approves an ambitious atomic policy. In March 2018, one day before the publication of this note, the government passed a national policy of national power to diversify their energy resources. And of course, former U.S. President Barack Obama opposed this. This confirmation is 2 days before then the higher prince, Saudi prince, traveled to the United States, which he did not reach with Obama. We learned that the Riyadh government planned to build 16 nuclear reactors in the next 25 years, and for this, it had assigned $80 billion. Westinghouse Electric had expressed its satisfaction for having found a new market in Saudi Arabia. And on October 30, Hashim bin Ul-Jamani, the highest Saudi authority, revealed that Riyadh would extract uranium from its land to use it as fuel of reactors they are building. Important data. I now go to Vanguardia, Spanish journal, that asks, can Saudi Arabia be a nuclear power? An article written in December 28th who says that Israel has good relations with Saudi Arabia. Both share an enemy, Iran. But this doesn't mean that Israel will accept anything. According to diplomatic forces in Israel collected in July by Newsweek, First Minister Netanyahu asked Trump to update him on negotiations and especially place limits, what we were talking about in our editorial. In the opinion of this article, that resulted in only the United States providing energy for atomic weapons. And Israel would remain as the only nuclear power in the Middle East, although it has not been declared directly. But this is a known secret that Israel has at least 80 nuclear warheads. The first country to use nuclear weapons in the world history is the United States, and this is why we want to contact with our correspondent Jorge Gestoso. We understand that this has caused significant differences among Congress and the White House. Perhaps, Lucia, the secret in all this is the secret. And the secret is that these secret negotiations are under the table of the Congress in the U.S. government and Saudi Arabia in order to aim to formalize the business of providing elements to develop a nuclear program, in principle with civilian purposes, would have had a core protagonist, Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of President Donald Trump. And this could be written in a book called Kushner Inc., newly published, that calls greed corruption. Because besides being a direct advisor of President Trump, Kushner has been traveling all over without reporting as if they were officials, and he has been in direct contact with Saudi Arabia, Israel, Netanyahu. He has Israeli or Jewish origin, but he also has a close relation both with Netanyahu and the Higher Prince, and he has been identified as the man behind the murder of journalist Khashoggi. So, in essence, Jared Kushner could be the man that has been developing all these negotiations under the table in order to help the great corporations and, of course, creating the great malaise among the Democrat opposition. Kushner has the ability of mixing water and oil, Israel and Saudi Arabia, but as you just mentioned, both have a common enemy, which is Iran. It handles elements, so United States is a core protagonist in the Middle East. Thank you, Jorge. We now go to Damascus and receive other data with Hissam Wanoush, our correspondent in the Arab Syrian Republic. Hisham, does this cause concern in the Middle East? Hello, colleagues and viewers. Yes, what is happening now in the Middle East is part of the arms race between the United States and Russia. The United States seeks to win multi-billionaire business through this agreement of providing Saudi Arabia with nuclear technology, especially as they have said 6 U.S. nuclear corporations have signed agreements with Saudi Arabia to build at least 16 nuclear plants in a term of 20-25 years in Saudi Arabia, allegedly to produce energy, atomic energy for peaceful consumption for the production of energy, because according to the statistics centers in Saudi Arabia, electricity consumption in this Arab country usually increases in 10% every year, for which the dependence on hydrocarbons would not be enough to produce electricity, and it seeks to diversify energy sources to guarantee this system of electric service in the country. But beyond the electricity, what Saudi Arabia truly wants is to confront Iran in the alleged war that is being performed in the Middle East under the excuse that Iran is expanding its interest in the Arab world. We must also talk about what Iran has always said, that all energy it produces is for peaceful purposes and not to produce atomic weapons. Nevertheless, the Higher Prince did not conceal his true intention of having atomic weapons or bombs under the excuse that Iran will continue developing its nuclear weapon, and so Saudi Arabia has to do it. In this framework, even if the United States controls fuel provision to Saudi Arabia and uranium, Israel will do everything possible to prevent any country from the Middle East have atomic weapons, and that Israel should remain in the first position with its nuclear supremacy. This atomic bomb could be received from Pakistan, especially because both countries have very good relations with their but lately, escalated tensions between India and Pakistan has grown, and these are two nuclear power that, according to experts, behind this scaling is the United States to ask Pakistan to turn and influence the business that the United States is holding with Saudi Arabia for the construction of nuclear weapons. Truly, this situation could aggravate tension in the Middle East and could always imply markets that seek weapons for its nuclear programs, like France and Russia as well. Thank you, Hisham, for these data. At this time, we add positions. We were saying that there is important differences between U.S. Congress members and the White House. And what is the position of the Islamic Republic of Iran? We will listen in this order: a U.S. congressman, and it is our interest to avoid Saudi Arabia from having nuclear weapons, because if you can't trust somebody, you can't trust them with nuclear weapons. Trump wants to provide substantial nuclear weapons and help Saudi Arabia, and this refuses to subject to any controls we would like to see. I don't know any country of the region or the world worse than the Saudi government. It is so dictator, oppressor, dependent, and corrupt. It is a government like that they will provide nuclear energy. They announced that they will build nuclear weapons, missile factories. This doesn't seem problematic for them. If the Saudi kingdom develops nuclear weapons with the support of the United States, as we have shown this first part of this program, will this bring consequences for the Middle East? If so, which would be those consequences? Let's make our first pause. Saudi Arabia, next nuclear power. This is our question and our critical move today. We go to Deutsche Welle, German media. Saudi Arabia and the Nuclear Temptation is the title of the news we can read from February 22, 2019. It says that there are also reserves from Israel. Critiques and possible Saudi plans also come from Israel. It's true that Jerusalem, encouraged by their common opposition to Iran, have approached. Nevertheless, both countries are skeptic among each other. According to Johnny Bengman, an Israeli journalist, he says that Israel completely opposes to Saudi Arabia having nuclear weapons. The same happens with Saudi Arabia. You never know when someone can take power. If extremist movements have nuclear weapons, we never know what would happen. The existence of nuclear weapons in Saudi Arabia could lead the other countries of the region to seek for the same. This would mean that the region could restart a race. We will look at some key topics of the Saudi Arabia policy in the region. Saudi Arabia has suffered some failures in the last years in its policy in the Arab world. Its moves in Iraq, Syria, and Palestine have not had good results. Financed by the Saudi Kingdom, Hajj was defeated. The military defeat compelled Saudi Arabia to dialogue with Iraqi authorities. For almost 25 years, it didn't have any link with Baghdad. And according to the Iranian influence, it started approaching Iraq in 2016. It is trying to reestablish commercial bonds after the sale of crude. The energy still depends 80% of oil exports. Nevertheless, to capture an actor as Iraq, they should stop the anti-Shiite speech, which is another conflict where Saudi Arabia as Palestine that was presented by the Western press as the main sponsor of the initiative called Arab Peace, that proposed the acknowledgement of two states. Nevertheless, that project did not prosper because of Israeli policy. Historically, Saudi had been confronted to Israel and in 1948, they rejected the Zionist influence. Nevertheless, the existence of Iran have approached. In March 2018, Prince Mohammed bin Salman said that Palestine should accept Israeli peace or be silent forever. There is fear that the Crown could use U.S. technology to build a nuclear bomb, which means that tensions between Riyadh and Israel would grow and could even unstabilize the entire region. Is this so? We are immediately going to ask our guests. From Chile, Pablo Jofre Leal, writer specialized in Middle East and Maghreb. And from Puerto Rico, Dr. Layo Sajo Leon Borja, professor of the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico, also specialized in security, defense, and military intelligence matters. It's a pleasure to have you both. I start with Pablo from Chile. Pablo, if Saudi Arabia develops nuclear weapons and becomes the second power in the Middle East, what political consequences could this bring? And I ask you this because the Saudis say that the idea is to diversify energy sources, but there are doubts about it. What ambitions could be behind this new Saudi enterprise? Good afternoon. There are two questions. The first is the meaning of a decision like the one Saudi Arabia, together with the main powers of the world, because we're talking about the certain possibility of an association with the United States, but also in this race for providing nuclear plants to Saudi Arabia is China, Russia, and South Korea. What this could implicate is a severe arms race, very dangerous, that could inevitably lead both in the Mediterranean and Central Asia to the goal of having nuclear weapons in a short period of time. This would also mean a double standards and hypocrisy of the United States regarding denying the nuclear development program to some countries, refuse and withdraw, like the joint action plan signed between G5 plus Iran and favor of Saudi Arabia. So to keep a flexible policy in open contradiction to the international law with a couple of allies like the Zionist entity and Israel and Saudi Arabia in order to allow it to produce nuclear weapons and also reject Iran accessing that possibility as well. So we are talking about danger for the region, double standards, and the certain possibility that in case of a movement, Iran also decides in all justice to be part of an arms race that also provided with nuclear weapons, even if it signed G5+1 that until now has been permanently violated by the United States and the European Union, France, Germany, that have failed to comply the conditions in full. Arms race, danger, instability, arms race, of course, this unstabilizes all the region. Severe danger, arms race. I now connect with Professor Laios from Puerto Rico. Professor, you are an expert in this matter. There's a document of a central convergence center of Berlin that analyzed how big the step of between nuclear civil use to military use could be. Both are so linked that we can hardly separate. With a civilian application of nuclear technology, we can have technology materials that can also be used for a military nuclear program. Your vision, please. Well, there is interest by Saudi Arabia, they say, to diversify their energy sources. I think that their project for some years is to build 16 nuclear weapons or 16 reactors. They're calling them nuclear stations. One station could have more than one reactor. And secret negotiations with the United States are aimed to propose technology transfer, but I think that they have not accepted the transfer of the equipment, but this is a preliminary proposal. Other countries would be interested in selling Saudi Arabia nuclear technology for civil reactors, and perhaps South Korea is interested, China is interested. I think in the past they mentioned it. China is building civilian energy reactors. I think that Iran, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, so there will be a commercial race for these reactors. I would be concerned, though, because these are public reactors. For energy, how about if Saudi Arabia asks the United States in secret, and this is why they keep these negotiations secrets, new technologies for reactors to produce nuclear weapons exclusively? I'm talking about this technology has been in experiment 10 years of reproductor fast breeder reactors that produce plutonium 239 for nuclear weapons. And why this kind of reactor? Well, we know that Russia has some experimental units that are being cooled with sodium liquid metals, but there's also India that seems to be in a program to develop these kind of reactors. And that originally they had planned to build 6, and now they are planning on 6. However, India, the rival of Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, well, this is just speculation. Don't you think that Saudi want to develop that technology in secret to produce plutonium-239 in view of the fact that the great power India wants to develop that technology? I don't know, but we do know that Saudi Arabia has secret factories of ballistic missiles, Chinese manufacturing, that NATO calls I think the version 21A is the one that China sold it in 2017. And this is how Saudi Arabia developed its force of strategic missiles. The thing is that since these missiles are superior than what they had before, China could have conventional Chinas, but also electromagnetic. And we would know if it's to destroy every micro electronic computerized equipment. They would have a nuclear explosive there. Since 2013, we have listened that Pakistan had a nuclear agreement with 2012, 2013, 2012, 2015. Remember the secret between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, since Saudi Arabia financed their nuclear program to Pakistan. If necessary, Saudi Arabia could recast technology analysis, and now they have an off-the-shelf for the Saudi. There are other possibilities. I'm sorry to take the word a little long. They have a very advanced chemical and petrochemical. They have and they could also theoretically synthesize the mineral phosphates they have in the desert. I think that, and also Jordan allied to Saudi Arabia, and then tried to reprocess nuclear weapons. Finally, I end this point. The fact that Saudi Arabia is manufacturing missiles more advanced than what China already sold it, SS-5 in 2007, which is highly potential. It can take weapons, or probably already has them because they have the nuclear weapon to do it. And this is the matter. These U.S. reactors would be aimed to strengthen American programs, or do they have double use, or is there a secret program to build Saudi Arabia? It has all the money possible. Reproducers that would produce plutonium-29 for nuclear weapons. This is the key of the matter. We go back to Chile now. I support you, but it has to do with my companies. Both multi-billionaire businesses being established here. We have understood that France and North Korea and even Russian consortiums have aspired to present their bid. It is clear that the United States is interested first in the commercial aspect. It's that its military-industrial complex have a safe market that have become temerary. Remember that in the United States, Saudi Arabia sold $110 billion, and all the billions of dollars that it sold to the Persian Gulf monarchies. So they have a non-potentiated market. If we consider that huge companies linked to nuclear energy, as Westinghouse, have become bankrupt in the United States, they need a market that enables all industries linked to civilian and military to seek alternatives. And once they do, undoubtedly, and insist that this U.S. industry should compete, for example, with Russian company Washato, with North Korea, France. And in this plan, the only strong confrontation they entail, the U.S. government does not allow the development of nuclear weapons. Apparently, what they call Section 623 of the Atomic Law in the United States, prepared in 1954, that should be included in any nuclear agreement. But all this can be skipped, as the United States has done throughout its history in its relations with foreign policy, and it will not be an obstacle in reaching agreement with an ally like Saudi Arabia. That is complement. It's part of tools that the United States has in the Middle East together with Israel. It will not look at Section 123 that simply can jump and reach political agreement to Riyadh. And everything Saudi Arabia wants to build their nuclear stations and see, or simply uranium wealth and plutonium wealth is not okay. But what has been said, what Dan Brule said in the Security Council of Munich, that it would not allow nuclear energy if they wanted to include it in the United States then. The United States, in relation of the United States, skips the national legislation and could make Saudi Arabia, according to its interests, generate nuclear weapons in that place. I go back to Dr. Lais. I only have 1 minute. In July 2018, Newsweek was published that Netanyahu asked Trump to keep him updated of negotiations and place concealed limits. I ask you, could this be a crack or a rupture in important differences between both actors? Well, it could be potentially, and a reaction of the U.S. Congress in favor of Israel after the death of Khashoggi in the United States. They could object, but I think that we must also consider the personal intervention of President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, married to Ivanka. It seems he has a personal friendship with Mohammed bin Salman, the higher prince of Saudi Arabia, and undoubtedly he is there, including for technological nuclear transfer. And also Tel Aviv, because I understand that Kushner is a friend of Netanyahu. So these alliances, although these alliances can change in time, this technology is addressed to keep security of the Persian Gulf against Iran, and that Israel has nothing to fear, and Saudi Arabia, of course, is on the side of the United States. These would be arguments, of course, and Israel, of course, is much greater than Saudi Arabia, and the United States will always guarantee the security of Israel. they could reach these arguments. And there's the other argument. If the United States does not sell nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia, it will get it anywhere. Russia, China, South Korea, France, Canada. There are other suppliers which result in business. They don't want to lose the great opportunity of thousands of millions of dollars. Potentially, there is 16 reactors, each one with more than one reactor. And I am concerned that there are types of secret experimental reactors to produce nuclear material exclusively for nuclear weapons that the United States could provide it in exchange of certain guarantees or but this is a question, of course. Thank you very much, Dr. Laios, the Chilean journalist. Greetings, and we will keep on deepening. Let's add other two important actors, China and North Korea. And let's see with our next guest, consequence in the Middle East. In this first segment, we see very dangerous instability. We're back. Let's continue developing our critical move. Saudi Arabia, next or following nuclear power. There are some facts that allow us to place this move in consequence. Historic relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran. A good part of the conflicts in the Middle East must be analyzed according to the dispute between Saudi Arabia, mostly Sunnite, and Iran, mostly Shiite. Both nations had the leadership in the region since 1979, when the Persian people broke the U.S. domination through the monarchy of Pahlavid. Saudi Arabia is a monarchy subjected to the White House and one of the main oil producers in the world. Saudi Arabia, for example, participated in the Syrian complex in spite of the closeness of this country to Iran, but also to avoid Iran supporting it from Lebanon. This strategic point that borders with Israel and is near the positions of Iran and Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Tensions with Israel increased when Israel threatened Iran. The dispute between both states have made Saudi Arabia to purchase increasing weapons. The International Study for Peace of Stockholm published a report and said that Saudi Arabia increased 225% its purchase of weapons and has become the main importer of war material in the world. In 2015, weapons purchase meant 7.5% of the GDP. Saudi Arabia has been, in the last years, have not been very favorable opinion around the world. The rupture of the United States of the 5+1 nuclear agreement. We have Bassem Tajeldine, international analyst. Bassem, Iran's position declared enemy of Saudi Arabia and the United States, wrote on February 20 in a Twitter account, first a fractured journalist and now Saudi technology exposes the hypocrisy of the United States. Is Iran the main threatened nation? Undoubtedly, but let's go to the main point, Lucia. There's nothing bad, which I think Iran wants to emphasize with this. There's nothing bad in developing nuclear energy with civilian purposes. Iran is doing it in civilian purposes and openly, and they have always participated in the Atomic Energy Agency. So this is not object, and this is what Iran wants to explain. It shows the hypocrisy of the United States, because with Saudi Arabia it does, but with Iran it has blocked it once and again. But Iran, Iran is claiming, and that in the case of Saudi Arabia, and many people are sure that something is in between Saudi Arabia and the United States. Undoubtedly, it's a development of nuclear weapons that would not be superior than those that Israel has, because it wouldn't allow, United States wouldn't allow, and Israel wouldn't allow that commands the region, or the so-called commander of the region. These would be tactic nuclear weapons that have been used against Yemeni people. Tactical weapons against that people have been used. And this development is what surely Saudi Arabia is looking for. But I go back to today, United States hypocrisy has been put on the table. Iran and Saudi Arabia are fully entitled to develop nuclear energy with peaceful purposes, because these countries do not have great rivers to generate energy as it's more efficiency with, as here in Venezuela and other countries, Norway, for example. 100% of its energy is produced through its rivers. But Iran and Saudi Arabia are countries with huge deserts, scarce water, and therefore the technical characteristics that are necessary for stability, scarce seismic faults enable developing this. But what is at stake in the end is what we just said. It's that they pretend to develop nuclear weapons to threaten Iran. It's not the other way around. It's not that Saudi Arabia is the great enemy of Iran, but it's the other way around. For the United States, the commander, Israel, and its soldier, Saudi Arabia, declare Iran their main threat. And it's not a military threat in the sense that it pretends to expand its territory. No, but it's positive influence in the region that has benefited countries like Lebanon and Syria in the struggle against terrorism that has expanded in the zone and has been induced in the zone. Of course, by the U.S. and Israeli intelligence services, and ideologically formed in Saudi Arabia, and there's the main danger. We accuse Daesh of being a fundamentalist ideology, the so-called Islamist State. But Daesh's ideology is the same ideology, the same cosmovision that inspires Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia. So we're talking about arming a miscalled institutionalized Daesh created in the zone a long time ago by the United States. Arm it with nuclear weapons. We must emphasize on this. Nuclear weapons to a monarchy that has a fundamentalist ideology and has been responsible for creating the poorly called Islamist State, Al-Qaeda, and other fundamentalist groups are in the region. It's something very dangerous. So, although they are there for a long time, the U.S. and Israel and intelligence services watching this over in Saudi Arabia, sometimes this could get away from their hands, and perhaps there's a change of regime in Saudi Arabia, and fundamentalist groups take over and take also those weapons. All this is being weighed in the United States, and this is why Israel's eruption, or to make it controlled, weapons that cannot threaten the Zionist entity in the region in the future. This is interesting, Bassem. what we were asking before we went to the pause. What about Russia, China, North Korea, nuclear powers in this chess game? Undoubtedly, the situation in the region has been stabilizing the last months thanks to the positive intervention, the aid and solidarity of Russia and China in favor of Iraq and Syria, essentially. Syria. It is them who have supported the forces of the Syrian government to defeat these groups. Also, Iranian forces have supported the Syrian government to defeat these fundamentalist groups. In this agreement, they have played very intelligently and very carefully, Russia and China, who has a nuclear base in the region and would be a threat for its interest. But the main U.S. purpose and promotes the electoral campaign in the past to the future, because Trump plans to be reelected, is how to assist U.S. corporations. We must see everything as a great business. Human rights in the region is not a matter of interest to the United States. The threat, as long as the nuclear capacities of Saudi Arabia can be controlled and do not surpass Israel, it's okay. But of course, what this can contribute to fundamentalist groups that are still there, that have taken away to Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia after being defeated in Syria. These same groups could use, in a given time, these tactical weapons against Syria, but also against Russia, against China, and especially in that region of Xinjiang, where there is a population, religious Muslim population, that has been induced under the same Wahhabi ideology of the Saudi kingdom to also create chaos in China, a very important area where the Silk Route crosses that links China and Pakistan. This is the great threat of China, how all this could unstabilize the region, its project of the Silk Route, and namely its ally, Pakistan, that has been seducing in the last months to try to be one for the United States. But on the Russian side, there would also be a threat to its territory in these conflictive zones that Chechnya and other Eurasian countries with Muslim influence have always had. But the business of Trump and its economic power groups, it's about how to rescue that business, and that's a good business. I don't believe that Saudi Arabia could have enough sovereignty to leave aside U.S. corporations and choose Chinese and Russian corporations. The United States will not allow it. It can threaten publicly, but behind the screen, Kushner, Trump, and Netanyahu are laughing, would be laughing if he pretends to develop any nuclear business with peaceful reason with Russia and China. This will not be possible. Therefore, Trump, on one hand, is encouraging this because they want to benefit bankrupt U.S. corporations, because the true competition could be European countries. European corporations, especially French, because of the alliances with the West, Saudi Arabia could have them for its development. But the essential topic is the greatest threat for Iran is the unstabilization of the region that could threaten the possible, no, not possible, it's a real fact, the Silk Route, and therefore the threat against Russia, in the sense that these nuclear weapons could be aimed to the fundamentalist groups in all Eurasian countries. Thank you very much, Bassem. Let's go now to our conclusions. We have several consistencies among our guests.